baby Botox is kind of shit. I don't like it.
Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so excited for everybody to hear from you today because I think you bring such a unique and expert perspective in all things like skin and cosmetic procedures. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I've been a fan of yours for so long now. I've watched your journey and your growth. So happy to be here.
You're sweet. I'm the fan here. Thank you very much, though. I always start the podcast asking, what is your first skincare memory?
Yeah, my first skincare memory is so vivid still to me. I remember being like 9 or 10 years old. I snuck into my mom's, like her inventory of like magazines back in the 90s. And she was like an avid collector of magazines, like so many different kinds. You know, when like before you used to like sign up with credit cards, they would like as a bonus, like they would send you magazines. So she would check off all of them. She's a hoarder like myself. And so I remember grabbing either Glamour or Cosmopolitan, and the cover said a lot of really racy things. You know, it was like 5 ways to orgasm, and I was like, what is this world? And it was like I remember reading a DIY mask you can make at home for smoother skin, or like, you know, all those like different kind of like, you know, catchy headlines. I remember like getting into the magazine and thinking, what is DIY? Like, what's D? Like, I don't even know this. And then just being so captivated by, you know, the explanation of like, you can make this at home with some oatmeal, egg white. There's an avocado and honey mask. And I, that night, made my first mask because everyone has eggs. We had oatmeal too. So I ended up making the mask. Definitely fucked it up. Can we say fuck it up?
Yeah.
Definitely fucked it up because I ended up, it was too cold when I was putting the egg white and oatmeal mask on my skin. So I was like, I'll microwave this. Mind you, I'm like in the 4th grade or something, you know? And this is when I was a latchkey kid. Like my parents were always gone. I was home alone. I didn't have any siblings. So I was like, I should microwave this. So I microwaved it and it turned into like a little spongy, like a cake almost, you know? Yeah. And I was like, how are you supposed to put this on? And I remember it just like crumbling on my skin. So that's like my first, but I was like addicted. I was like, this is so cool. I love this. And then I remember having a sleepover soon after that and telling all the girls, we've got to do this. Like I've always been the girl to like rally everyone for like the new beauty thing, the new whatever. And so I was like, you guys, we've got to do this. It's supposed to help like clear our skin, get rid of our acne. And someone was like, none of us have acne. We're like 10. And I was like, I think we should just prepare. So that's my first introduction, I think, to like a skincare experience. It wasn't really a product. It was like, you know, something I read in a magazine that you could do at home.
How funny, because even today you're kind of like always pioneering for like new treatments, and
yeah,
that's so funny that that's translated into your work now. And
yeah,
always. Your career is like pretty impressive and extensive. And so I have a lot of followers who are interested in breaking into the aesthetic space. So can you tell us a little bit about what your career journey has been like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Filipino American. When I was younger, I wanted to become something creative. I knew that I just wanted to be something in the creative arts, maybe journalism, something like that. And growing up, my mom has always told me, you know, I did not come to this country so you can be creative. You need to be in the medical field. That's it. And I've always had that, like, you know, kind of internal fight. Like, I want to make sure that my parents that they're proud. And I know that they sacrifice so much to come over here from the Philippines. And I've got to do what they want. But also, I don't want to like die from sadness. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing. So I ended up going into nursing. And I was like, hey, it's a few years of school. I can do this, and if I hate it, I'll just like tell mom, you know what, I'm scrapping it. I tried it. I'm going to do something else. But I had heard that there was like this plastic surgery side of nursing, and there was this, you know, minimally invasive side of nursing. And at the time, it was like 2008 when I graduated. It wasn't the field that it is now. You know, I feel like now the field is so much more lucrative. Like everyone knows about it. It's so cool. It's so sexy. It's like very much more accepted. It's not as taboo as it was back then. And back then it really was that. I told my mom, like, I'm going into cosmetic nursing. And she was like, oh my God. She was like, I told you to get into nursing and now you're finding your way back to the creative side of things. Like, just stay in the hospital. So we made an agreement. I definitely was still working in the hospital, but straight out of nursing. My first job was at a laser clinic in Los Angeles. And I found that job through Craigslist. like in some like random area of Craigslist.
That's
And
so
it
crazy.
was definitely this like sketch little spot in the valley. And I was like, you know what? I've got to start, and I've got to start somewhere. So I did that. And simultaneously, a few months after that, I got a job in the ER. Quickly realized after 6 months, I'm not built for that. And definitely went straight into neurosurgery shortly after, and then stayed there for a couple of years. So I was always working like multiple jobs. I always had my cosmetic nursing job, and I always had the clinical job for the first 3 years. And then after 3 years, I was like, I'm really good at the beauty stuff, and I have so much joy when I go to work there. And I just like, the shift goes by so easily, and I find myself wanting to stay there later because it's just so fun to hang out with women and make them feel good and share beauty secrets and all of that. So back then it was really hard unless you were working with a plastic surgeon or you were working at a derm office. Injectors, like in the early 2000s, like mid 2000s, were usually nurses working in these offices where the plastic surgeons were like, I'm not into doing injections, I'm doing the surgeries, you handle the smaller stuff. Or the derms were like, I'm doing the Mohs surgery, I'm doing the skin checks, you do that cosmetic stuff. That was really common for that time. And then what ended up happening was in 2012, like Instagram hopped on the scene, and it like changed everything. And we saw these like, beautiful before and afters. And I think the field really took off because of social media. Thank goodness, it did for me and my business and in my personal journey as an injector. And now it's so different. There's so many training opportunities. There's so many shadowing opportunities. Everyone is very into like connecting on socials. Like to find a community is so much easier now than it was back then. And I'm so thankful for that because it was rough back in the day. It was like,
yeah, I can't imagine.
I don't know, I'm making this much. I don't know what anyone else is doing. I don't even know more than like one or two other injectors in this entire industry. And now it's blown up. So that was my path. Sketchy little Craigslist. Could have been killed. No, I'm just kidding. It was totally normal office.
Well, and it goes to show too, just like what living in your own alignment is like. You knew from the beginning that that's what you wanted, and you kept pursuing it. And as you said, you started to realize you're really, really good at this and enjoyed your time so much. So at what point did you dream of creating The Things We Do and having your own spot?
So I never dreamed of having a place called The Things We Do. That really just fell into my lap because what ended up happening with social media was I really focused on natural intention guided results. And so I would do, every time I got these trainings from the pharmaceutical companies and from the doctors that I worked with, it was always focused on like, yes, here's the science and you can put these in these things in these places in the face, but like here are some selling tactics, and like here's how to get the most out of your patient, or here's how, if they tell you they want to change one thing, try to convince them to change more things. And it was just such an ugly, you know what it's like. It's like this is not why I became a provider. This is not a field I feel comfortable in. And at a certain point, it was like, I've got to get out of this field. Like maybe I should I don't know, I've always thought about being an FBI agent. I wonder if they're hiring, like that kind of thing. Like I was like, what am I going to do? And so I was working with these different offices. And even at the last office that I was at before I created The Things We Do, it was a place where I thought, oh, these women are younger. The doctor gets it. It's a beautiful space. There was still pressure to treat younger girls, even if, they're not 18 yet. And if the mom says that they'll, sign off and we have parental consent, it's legal. Who cares if she's 15? Her mom's going to pay for it. It's fine. Oh, we burned another Black girl again. Can you take care of it? You're the, provider of color. And this is like from a dermatologist. And I remember her partner also was telling me, you're doing great. You're doing around 16,000 a day. I think you can sell 20,000 a day. I think you can do so much more, Vanessa. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? This is happening to me again. I can't believe it, and it only takes two brain cells, I feel like, to realize this is just something else has to happen. I've done this a few times where I've grown these practices. I have a significant following. I know how patients should be treated. As nurses, we're always taught in nursing school, you are the true advocate for the patient. If you see something going down in a clinical setting, you've been spending the most time with this patient. Really fight for your patient, fight for their rights, make sure you advocate for them, all of that, right? So I was like, I'm not into this. And either I leave or I create a space, and I've got to find a way. Then I quit. 6 months later, we opened up The Things We Do. And, I've always imagined and said to myself, I could open up a place I could do something, but it's got to be right. Like I've got to make sure that everything that went wrong at other offices, I have to really learn from this, take a step back, not just make things better, but also transformationally in our industry. Like, how can we talk about this more openly about like the ethics and morals and mental health component and like the ugly side of our industry, and how can we better things, and how can we honor our patients more and get back to like the true reason why we're doing this, which is like not just patient advocacy, but it's more so like it's customer service. Like we're so lucky to have them in our chair. It is a business, but it's the softer side of medicine. So let's get back to that first. And luckily, because we concentrated on those things, our first year, it exploded. I'm so thankful. And here we are 5 years later, and we're going on our 5th location, and it's been amazing. And I'm just so thankful that we were able to serve our community, and our community got it. It's been wonderful.
It's been so awesome to watch you guys grow. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with the word community, because you really do have a community there and people who trust you so much. And you're so selective with your providers. And I love when you bring on somebody new and you kind of amplify their voice and we get to know them. And this is, coming just from someone who watches you from across the country. It's just really, really cool to see how much you invest in your people, patients, and your, the people that you bring on board, because it really is an extension of you and an extension of the practice. And each one that you bring on, they just kind of bring something unique and new. And I told you, I just interviewed Dr. Bryant before this. And I think it's so cool that you now have a naturopathic doctor on board who can bring a whole different side to the patient experience. And I think it's such a great concept. And you really understand your patient and what they need.
Thank you. Yeah, we love Dr. Bryant so much. Within the things we do, I always wanted to make sure that the setup or like the chain of support and the team feel and the culture within the company was always what like I hoped for when I was like applying to these places for work, right? And what I felt like was really strange is like when you get hired onto a practice, it's always like, okay, let's see what you can do. We'll give you some resources, maybe or maybe not. We'll give you some training, but like you've got to prove yourself. You got to get out there. You got to like gain your own patient clientele, and we're going to look at your retention, all of those things, right? And then after about a year, when that goes really well, like I'm hustling, I'm making sure that I'm doing the posting, I'm like, working on these, programs and loyalty programs for patients. I'm doing everything I can to make sure I'm investing my own money outside of the trainings that I'm already given from these companies, that I'm shadowing with everyone that I can shadow with, that I'm like paying for these conferences out of my own pocket, that I'm doing all of these things. Then you start to really get elevated at a certain point within a practice. And then what ended up happening was like, I think you're doing a little too well, actually. And like, we want to pull back, or like, I noticed that some of my patients have started seeing you too. Are you poaching them by any chance online? And it's like, wait, what? This is such a weird conversation. Also, you're the doc that gets to like go on vacation every 2 months
while
I'm working money here. And I love doing that. And I love that for you because you've given me the space. But like, why are you mad about that? It's so strange. So in opening the things we do, I was like, listen, I know exactly what it's like to be on the other side of things. Nothing gives me more excitement than watching my other providers and my other like team members, like the managers, the front desk coordinators, the medical assistants shine within their role and grow within the company. That to me is like, oh my God, that's so much success. I remember I was like shadowing one of our providers that I think was 2-3 years into injecting. And I just like to pop in at the different locations and make sure everything's going well. And if they need any support, I'm here for you. And so I popped in and was shadowing with a provider, and the patient said like, oh, are you learning from the injector today? And I was like, yeah, I'm learning, I'm here. And like, I didn't care. I was like, yeah, I'm here. The provider was like, she was really cute about things. She was like, this is my boss. She's the founder of this place. She trained me, since I was like, even before I was an injector. And the person was like, oh my gosh, that's great. I was just going to tell you, this injector, she's the absolute best. You're so lucky to be training with her. And that to me was like, that's so much success. And I have zero ego about things. Like, I really just don't care if we have a place where we all get to like come and enjoy work and go home to our families and enjoy life, and our patients are safe and they're gorgeous, like, job done. We're good.
Yeah, and such fulfillment for your providers that work for you, that they have patients who love them so much and that they feel fulfilled in their own work and confident in their own work. I mean, that's huge. And it all just compounds and continues to grow the practice.
Yes, you're so right.
One thing I love about the way you practice is you've kind of coined the term facial balancing.
Yes,
and it's something that I
trademark.
Yeah, cool. I love that. I'm a big trademark fan.
Yeah.
Go get that trademark when you have your own little thing.
Right.
I love it. And I think it's just it really wasn't happening as much before. We were kind of like, oh, somebody comes in for lips. Okay, sure. Here you go. Here's your lips. Bye. Like, can you tell us a little bit about what facial balancing means and why it's so important for the patient?
So when I first started injecting, we could really only talk about on-label places to inject, right? Like most of our training courses were from the pharmaceutical companies. When I started beauty theory, gosh, was that 2017, 2018? Providers weren't holding these like master classes where we show you everything that we do off label every day at our practices. That just wasn't the norm at the time. There were master classes from like Allergan and still have to be on label, because it's from the pharmaceutical companies. So when we were trained initially, what was happening was like, you can inject here on the cheek and you can inject here on the lips. Or actually at the time when I first started, it was you can inject in the fold and the lips, and that's about it. And that's all we could really talk about within the trainings. And I was just like, okay, I understand why we're teaching this way and I understand what we're doing, but what's everyone really doing with this stuff, And then as we had more fillers come out and the indications were different, the rheologies or the study of the characteristics of these fillers were so different, and we can use them in much more artistic and holistic ways within the face, there was this term like global assessment, like global rejuvenation. And I always felt confused by that term, because it was almost like too expansive, like, all right, I get what we're saying, but where does that really play
where do we
in,
stop?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
where. So what started happening over time with my socials was 2015, everyone was coming in for lips. Like I think Kylie Jenner at the time had started doing her lips, and that was like explosive for the younger girls, you know what I mean? Where it was like, oh my gosh, I think younger women are getting these things, and everyone was inquiring about like lips. And it's so funny because I think around that time I wrote this blog post like how Kylie Jenner like changed my career, and like it had nothing to do with me. I wasn't her injector, but like just the conversation of this was starting to happen for younger women. When I first started, all my patients were in their 50s and 60s, and now I was treating patients who were in their 20s and in their 30s. Everyone was coming in for lips, and I was like, this is not going to make you look prettier or younger if we go fuller with your lips. Let me show you what you're starting to see. Because patients would come in and they would say, I don't know what it is. Everything just looks sad and like just kind of droopy in the face. So I'd like to get lips, please. And it just wouldn't make any sense to me. And I would have to educate and talk about, what's happening in the different layers of the soft tissue and how we're aging, not just in the skin and all the different things that are happening with the skin, but with the fat tissue and the muscle tissue and in the bone. And then how we move forward and downward in the face, and stabilizing, 1, 2, 3 areas in the face without even touching the lips is going to rejuvenate the central portion of the face. And really looking at patterns and face shapes over time. What I noticed in my practice was that I kept seeing round faces ask for the same things. I kept seeing heart shapes and square shapes ask for the same things. And I was like, there's definitely some patterns happening here. And so I started taking notes over time, and I put together this entire deck on like how there are very hallmark things that specific face shapes ask for. And so when you see a face shape walk into your office, immediately think about these things, because before they even say anything, that that's probably what they're going to talk about. And then talk about how common it is for everyone with their face shape to talk about these specific concerns. And it really just goes back to their natural anatomical sites and their genetics, and it's okay, and how to like normalize those things. So facial balancing really came into play because I was thinking about the Eastern way of looking at like face and body and mind and soul and heart and all of those things. And when you go to Asia, typically what your experience is, at least for me going to the Philippines, you go to say you're getting a facial, right? A facial. And like your family knows you're going to be gone for hours because most likely you're going to do, a facial, but also like probably a laser treatment and probably some Botox and probably some acupuncture and most likely a vaginal steaming. The vaginal steam rooms in Asia, like everyone's sitting in a huge room together, and you have these like pods that like close you up until here. So nobody really sees you, but everyone knows what's happening. You're sitting on a pot and you're sweating, everything is sweating, but everyone's speaking to each other. And it's this really wonderful, like female communal thing that's happening. And then you go home. So that's what like a facial is like for us in Asia. And everything is like it's not compartmentalized. Like your acupuncturist isn't different from the person who does. I mean, it might be a different person, but it's all within one space. And so I really wanted to bring that kind of like Eastern concept back to our practice. Like it's not so much about like, because you have specific ratios and measurements in your face, you need to fit into this like golden ratio, phi ratio, like you need to fit into this formula made by a man. Let's just talk about balance. If you feel like you're really cheeky, let's look at working towards angles. If you feel like you're too sharp, let's work at like softening you, And so that's what I started posting about, and it just took off. And I think, it's one of those things that I'm like the most proud of, other than the community that we've all built together, because I'm just so glad that we can step back and say, we don't have to, these rules that these like older guys came up with in beauty for us a long time ago, we don't have to abide by those things anymore. We can talk to, and we can speak to, and we can perform on the facial balance that suits us, And so it's very customizable, and it really depends on what you feel like your favorite features are and how can we support those features as best as possible.
I love that. And I think trends too, like there are trends in cosmetic procedures just like there are trends in every other industry. And I think this approach helps you kind of understand how you maybe can apply some of those to the patient who comes in asking for them, while also keeping things natural to their own, structures and how their face shape was kind of meant to be. It's a balance, I think.
Right. Absolutely. So for example, like masseters are having a moment right now on TikTok. Masseter Botox and masseter slimming is just not for everyone, but for the people that it is great for, really look at, is this person more square? Do they have like, the capability to have a little bit of masseter slimming while making sure that we still protect the integrity of the laxity within the gel space and like the upper cheek space? So that kind of stuff, it's like definitely pay attention to like, what's gaining speed in your industry, but also see, is it appropriate for this face shape? Is it appropriate for their balance?
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding how to then relay that to the patient in a honest but compassionate way, because oftentimes they do come in asking for one specific thing, and it's our job to really work with them and educate them on why it may or may not be the best option for them.
You're so right about that. I ask patients all the time if I feel like they're getting obsessed with one thing a little too much, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of stress I can see when they're explaining it to me. Like, I just need, if this just comes up a little bit more, and then there's like a shadow here when I make this facial expression in this lighting in my rear view mirror in my car when I'm in my garage. And it's like so specific. I'll just take a step back and I'll say, okay, if I do this for you, do you feel like you'll be happy at that point, like after it's completed? And do you feel like you'll look happier, more refreshed, healthier, and like truly prettier? And they'll say like, usually the response is, I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't know, and they just get fixated on that one thing. And then I say, can I just take a look at you and get my hands on you and see what your face is telling me is safest and what's best for you? And I'll give you your best and safest treatment plan. And if you feel good about that, then we can move forward. But you chose me as your clinician, and I want to make the safest choices for you. And I do want you to be satisfied and walk away looking happier and healthier and refreshed. So let's get to that. And then no patient is usually like, no, I don't want that assessment. They're like, yeah, I'd really like that. So I think so much of it goes back to like the psychology and the language and knowing who your patient is like. And within the first couple of moments, you can usually figure out what their communication style is like too. So you lean into those things. I would have to say it's really about, again, going back to the integrity of like the patient-provider relationship.
It's such an art, right? The way that we speak to the patients. And like you said, really reading the patient and understanding how much they want to know, what kind of information they want to know, just understanding how to best communicate to them in a way that they are going to receive it. Is you get better and better at it the more you do. And like you said, within the first few minutes, you can really tell like how you need to speak to somebody. So you have been really open about your own cosmetic procedures and treatments. Can you tell us a little bit about what's been most impactful for you personally?
Oh God, I love so many of them. The most impactful. So I've done these minimally, less invasive treatments like Botox, filler, threads, PRFM, Vivace treatments, microneedling, microinfusion, all of those things. And I've also had surgeries, cosmetic surgeries like platysmoplasty, buccal fat removal, jawline liposuction, all of those things as well. I would say the most, can I pick one from both sides?
Yeah, that'd be great.
My platysmoplasty was like just life-changing. I'm naturally a very round-faced gal, and all the women in my family look this way also. It's genetic. Even when I'm like the lowest body fat percentage, I always just have like a plump, round cheek face. That's just me. The other side of that is that I also naturally have a lower hyoid bone. So with that placement, what ends up happening typically in alignment with that anatomy is your platysmal bands come out a little bit further. So your floor of mouth is really short. So I remember seeing myself on TV. I was on the doctors. I was doing a thread treatment. I remember seeing the footage afterwards and thinking, I'm going to post this everywhere. As soon as I saw the footage, I was like, this is not me. I don't know who this is, but it's not me. Surely, who is this gal who is like her? I don't know if it was like my posture that was off or something, but I was like, whose neck is this? And who, like, my cheek connected straight to the neck. It was so strange. I was looking at the photos and I was like so sad about it because I wasn't doing my usual posing when I see myself like in a mirror or on camera, and I just felt so insecure about it. Not because literally nobody in my life has ever said anything about it. It's just for me, I was like, I don't feel confident, and I didn't post it. I didn't say anything about it. And I was on like, at the time, the doctors was still a big deal and it was a nationally syndicated show. I should have been blowing it up and celebrating it. So immediately after that, I went to my good friend, Dr. Sharmila Sundar, who had trained alongside me in beauty theory courses. And she's just a gorgeous plastic surgeon who has the heart of just like everyone's best friend that they deserve and is a genius. She's double board certified, in facial plastic surgery and was like chief of her residency at Stanford. And I was like, what's going on? Because I just saw this on TV and what's going on here? And she was the one who educated me on like, oh, your bone is so low and genetically you're just a little more forward. There's nothing wrong with it. However, if you just like every time you look at a photo of yourself or like a mirror when you're caught off guard or a candid photo, if it bothers you, it's probably worth it to look into it and take care of it. And so the platysmoplasty for me, what it did was she sewed my muscle bands together and pulled them back further so that now I have a longer floor of mouth, right? Let me tell you how impactful that is. Like the confidence afterwards, every photo, every video, every time I pass a mirror, I feel like it's taken off like 60% of the stress that I've ever had in my life away from me. And so 10 out of 10, highly recommend it. As far as like less invasive treatments, my absolute favorite has to be PRFM. I love Botox. I love filler. It's everywhere in my face. I love threads. Done it a couple of times in the past, like several years on my own face, but there is nothing like thickening your skin. I feel like all of those other things are fantastic and should be considered as like, this like deep cleaning that you go to the dentist for every now and then. But when your skin, your everyday skin is just thicker and healthier, that to me is like my brushing is taken care of. Brushing and flossing, that's done. Skin is thickened.
Well, because that's not easy to achieve, right? Well, it hasn't been in the past. So to have that, it's really like, we can manipulate the structures under the skin, but the way your skin lays on top is so important. And so by thickening it, it just helps the overall picture look so much better.
Yeah. So platelet-rich fibrant matrix. I loved PRP before. It's just you had to do so many treatments to finally see like a significant difference, especially for people who weren't so visual. It was hard for them to really notice that difference. And once we were able to take PRP and thicken it and turn it into PRF, I mean, with one treatment, it's so lovely what it does for the under eye area, for the submental area, for the preauricular zone in front of the ear, even for the shadows like around the mouth, just to help bring that to light a bit more without looking fuller in the face. You know, it's really just a skin treatment. That to me has been like really life-changing. And it's like a biostimulator. It's my own stuff. So the girls who come in sometimes and they're like, I'm nervous, but I know I need something, but I don't know about injectables. I'll say, we're still going to do an injectable, but it's your own stuff. Let's get to it. And the PRF is always like one of those introductory things where they're like, oh my God, I look so normal still. I trust this place. So it's great.
And I think there's just a level of it just helps people feel a little bit better knowing that they're using a biostimulator versus a filler sometimes, especially just because there is so much out there. We've all seen the bad filler, and unfortunately that's what people who aren't in the industry associate with filler, is those bad cases that are very obvious. So I can understand when they come in and they're super nervous. And I personally love biostimulators too. I think they're just amazing. Are there any treatments that you don't love, like across the board, you really just don't think are great?
Yeah, I mean, I think with filler and with Botox and threads, there are things just done poorly. You know what I mean? So it's not so much the actual treatment itself or the actual, tool itself. It's more so a lot of times the user. But as far as actual treatments, what I don't love is okay, so in my industry, we get a lot of patients in our practice who are women of color, because most of us are also, our providers are women of color, and our staff as well. So we get a lot of skin type 4 through 6. We still see, and sadly in this day and age, a lot of skin types 4, 5, and 6 getting burned by even radio frequency treatments. So radio frequency that's turned up too high or that's too aggressive. I've even had patients come in from dermatology offices who have said, yes, you are going to hyperpigment, but we can just give you some bleaching cream afterwards and it's going to be fine. At least your skin integrity will be smoother, but then you're also creating these other issues. So I feel with certain heat treatments that say that they are approved for all skin types, a lot of them are not really. We just need to be a lot more innovative with the heat-based therapies and skin of color. Aerolase is something that I'm really excited about. It's a technology that's been out for a while. We demoed it just a while back. I hope they're not listening because they'll hound me down now and every 2 seconds send me an email. But I'm really loving that technology and seeing what some of my colleagues nationally and also internationally, how they're using that innovative machine on skin of color and really helping people with the acne and hyperpigmentation and all of that. I really love that technology. I love Vivace so much. It's, so much more of a gentle form of radio frequency microneedling, and that truly is great for all skin types. We've done deep, rich, melanated skin type 6 treatments that have had wonderful, wonderful results. So that's what I would say. Things probably used incorrectly more so.
Yeah. And on that note, what are your thoughts, or what would you say to somebody who's afraid of some of these devices because of the fat loss, which is a possibility, but it's kind of gone a little bit viral on social media and scaring a lot of people?
It is scaring a lot of people. I think, here's the thing. Do you remember when Ulthera first came out? And everyone was obsessed with it and they were pushing it and they did such a great job with advertising that. The marketing was everywhere. There were billboards all over Los Angeles. And then it had a very low patient satisfaction rate on Real Self after the first 2 years that it came out. And there were a lot of people with complications and fat loss because of choosing the wrong candidates and then going too hot for those candidates. And what was happening was fat loss in the face and then even saggier skin afterwards because you didn't have the foundation underneath holding that tissue. And then some of these heat-based therapies recently, have had so much marketing behind them. And it's the same thing again. And it's another heat therapy where when it's used so aggressively and you're choosing the wrong candidate, you are going to get an unwanted result. And that's what we're starting to see all over IG Reels and TikTok. I also don't understand why these offices are pushing you need 3 to 5 of them and let's do it 1 month apart. It's okay, show me the clinical trials, show me the white papers that say that we have to do that and this is the only way to achieve those results. It's really a money grabber, you know what I mean? I also think that there's some good to all of that stuff too, because in Asia, some of these heat-based therapies that were taking away some of the fat really took off because in Asia we are so round, typically we have much more
the desired result.
Yes, and it was great because it was tightening the skin and it was also minimizing some of that roundness where I ended up getting, jawline liposuction. You can use that in the submental zone and it can, minimize some of the fat tissue within that space. So it's great for people who have excess fullness and also thicker skin. But if we're talking about this one size fits all for everyone and do 3 to 5 of them on the face back to back and we're not being wise about choosing the right candidate, that's why we're ending up with so many unhappy people. I think it has a lot to do with that on one side of things, marketing the wrong thing. And I think it also has to do with, as providers, at the end of the day, we've got to remember to do the right thing for our patient, regardless of what your boss is pushing you to do or your quota at the end of the day you have to meet. You've got to move on from a practice like that. You know what I mean? You've got to just find something that suits you and what contributes to goodness in our industry because we all win that way. Also, I always think about, like, I have 2 sons and I have a daughter, right? I don't think about this as much with my sons, and I probably should because it's going to affect them also. But for my daughter, like, we're truthfully helping shape the next generation of how they view beauty and what's okay and what's not okay for them, right? And I want to make sure that we're all contributing to a healthier view of skin health and beauty and balance for this next gen, because it was fucked for us. You know what I mean? So I hope it's a lot better for them.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think about that a lot, having a daughter. Like, what is my role in all of this? Like, what role am I playing? You know, it's very interesting. We had a couple of audience questions about certain like areas that people like just can't get under control. And one of them was, what treatment recommendations do you have for crepey neck skin? Obviously, this is going to, you can't see the patient in front of you, but just in general.
The neck has been one of the things that I've been trying to get my patients to focus on for the past 5 years, and it's been really successful at our office. But I remember Dr. Steve Yolen years back, who was our medical director, and he's also the provider that brought Latisse to the attention of Allergan. And he's the most requested key opinion leader and trainer globally. So I just really love this guy. He's also just a good human being. But years ago, he told me, you know what, Vanessa? And if anyone knows who I'm talking about, he speaks like a really sweet, he just has a gentle way about speaking. He was like, you know what, Vanessa, I think I've kind of done an injustice to my patients because I've only focused on face. And now all my patients are coming in who I've been treating for years and years, and their face is so smooth and it's so rejuvenated. And I haven't paid any attention to the neck. And I think we've really got to start doing that. That always stuck with me. So that was years ago. And in my own aging journey, right? That's touched me in a certain way where I'm like, oh my God, I can't forget about my neck. And so whenever I place sunscreen, it's all over the face, but it's all over the submental and the neck. If someone has crepey skin on the neck, my go-to treatment for that is a little concoction where we inject a concoction that's mixed together. It's a little bit of hyaluronic acid dermal filler mixed with a little bit of neurotoxin as well. So a neuromodulator like Botox, Xeomin, Dysport, Jeuveau, mixed with something called glutathione, which is a super antioxidant to brighten the skin. So I mix that all up so you get a little bit of skin thickening in there, you get a little bit of microtox for skin smoothing, skin improvement, you get a little bit of glutathione for any hyperpigmentation within the rings in the neck, because you know that does form a little bit of scar tissue and it does form a little bit of hyperpigmentation. So you get these 1 centimeter aliquots all over the neck. We do injection and then we mix it in with Pure FM. And then we go into that area, we thicken the skin, we brighten it, we smooth the skin surface. And it has been amazing at our office for years. And it's an amazing go-to. And you do it once, maybe once a year, maybe once every other year, and it's beautiful and it holds. So that's what I would do.
That's a great tip. That's all about like using the modalities available to you, right? There's a lot of different things out there that have an impact, and oftentimes just one thing isn't going to cut it. So that's a really good lesson that for patients, you know, really trust the process and understand that sometimes we have to hit it from a couple different angles with a few different things to make an impactful change.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a provider that I saw on social media. It was on Instagram, I believe, and she's like a really big thread advocate, and she just loves threads so much. And I saw that someone had some crepey skin on the submental zone going into the neck area, and she put like, I don't know, it seemed like 10,000 threads in there, like the mini threads, right? And I love threads. Like I love them so much. I'm a thread trainer for MidPDO. I talk about them all the time, but I'm like, you could also just do a little Pure FM and like a tad bit of, you know, that concoction that we were talking about, and they're done and you don't have to poke them like 200 times and it's all good. Where when you think about your tools as a provider, or if you're a patient and you're looking for different providers and different options, there's different layers of the skin, and then the soft tissue itself, there's multiple layers of that. So find someone who really understands that any one of these tools is not going to be the one answer for you. There's usually what's needed is those different tissues, you know, addressed in different ways with different things, because that's what we're human and we're a little more complex than just one answer. I like to have a little bit more of like, not jack of all trades so much, but multiple modalities usually are best because we have complex skin. We're not little robots.
Yeah, exactly. A similar question, what is your favorite treatment for crepey under eye skin? Another tough area.
So one of my favorite things to do lately, so this is for someone who doesn't have true volume loss in the under eye area. Because if you have true volume loss, if you have like a deeper concavity and we need to bring that to light physically, then I'll usually suggest doing filler in certain zones, in the surrounding tissues, and then into the true tear trough. But if you don't have volume depletion and it's truly like a lack of integrity in the skin, like the skin is thinning, when you pinch the skin tissue, it takes like a second or two for it to kind of snap back into the zone. And there's really a thinning that's happening there that you can also see within, like, there's like fine lines that even at rest, you know, where before dynamically in movement, they would be there. And then at rest, it would smooth out. And now in rest and in movement, those fine lines are always there. And the tissue just seems dull and kind of dehydrated. I love to do two things. So one of them is PRFM. So I inject PRFM deeper within the tissues. And then very off-label, I've been placing Skinvive there.
Oh, really?
Which is, yes. And I love it so much with tiny, tiny like micro aliquots. It's been so successful so far within our practice and with the patients and myself who I've done it for, because the Skinvive goes really superficial and then you have the skin thickening deeper within the skin tissue and you don't lose any movement. You still have all of your movement, but it's like you have a new skin. So that's been my favorite.
Ooh, that is a hot tip. I'm loving Skinvive. I love it. It's very exciting. I do want to talk a little bit about the brand because you have a product line associated with the things we do, and there's so many really cool products and tools there. Specifically, our esthetician, Allie, she was so excited when she heard that I was going to be talking to you. She loves, actually, when I was in LA and I met with you, you gave me a huge, very generous goodie bag, and I gifted her the high frequency wand because she had been wanting one. So she actually uses it in her facials now and loves it. Like, she's obsessed with it. So she uses it on her clients. But I want to know if you can tell us a little bit about the high frequency wand, why you started it, and what people can expect from it.
Yes, the high frequency wand specifically came about because in 2020, everything closed down, right? And so in Los Angeles specifically, we had very, very strict regulations for our estheticians. They couldn't even work for a year. So when we all closed down and when medical personnel were able to open up their offices again, we were probably not working for a couple of months, but estheticians couldn't come back for an entire year. I think it was maybe a little over a year. And so we made ways to make sure that we kept our estheticians on, and we did virtual consultations. We did like everything that we could, but our patients were like, we'll definitely wait for them, but like, what can we do? Like, I'm breaking out. I have like, you know, acne from the masks, from the stress, from like everything going on. And I was like, what can we do? I remember someone asked me like, you know, the high frequency treatments did so much for me. I'm getting all of your guys' skincare. I'm trying to do facials for myself at home. I bought this off of Amazon, but like, I've been like shocking myself and I don't know if this is the right way to use it. Also, 2 of the heads on the wand don't work. I think this is the right, you know, like, and there was a lot of confusion and they were like, which one do you suggest to buy? And I was like, well, I don't know. You know, I really don't know. So I ended up partnering with this manufacturer, and we make sure that specific gases are in specific wands, and we make sure that the quality of it is always A+. So if something doesn't work, usually we catch it in-house first at our fulfillment center. And then we just want to make sure that you guys are able to have a tool at home that we feel good about referring to you guys. High frequency is one of those, like, oh my gosh, someone commented on my page today, like, we've been using high frequency wands since the 1930s in Russia when it was the USSR. This is a wonderful technology, but we've always known about it. And I was like, fantastic.
Great.
It's one of those like, yeah, it's one of those like older technologies that's been around forever. Like, since I've been working in plastic surgery, med spas, and cosmetic dermatology, I've always known our esthetician to have high frequency wands. It's just, we've never done like the direct to consumer thing. That's never been so popular until when we were stuck at home, right? And we were like, what can we do? So now we offer the high frequency wand that has 4 interchangeable wands. 2 of them have argon gas, which is like the violet kind of like, I'm a little colorblind, so this is what I hear. It's like violet kind of indigo light. That's specifically for skin rejuvenation, but more so killing bacteria, helping prevent breakouts, stopping breakouts where they are. And then we have 2 neon wands. So the neon wands are really for like more of the profound rejuvenation and improving follicle health, all of that. So it comes with both of those gases, and it's been our bestseller for so long.
It's really exciting. And you guys have some other tools as well. What other tools do you recommend in general for people to kind of maintain at home what they're doing in the treatment room?
Oh, this is one of my favorites. Okay, so our ritual kit, which has the Do and Go microneedling stamp at home. So it's safe for at home use. There's an entire guide on how to use it. Microneedling at home is not for everyone. Like we have patients come in and they bought it and they were like, I wanted to do it at home, but I'm so nervous. So can I just pay you to do it for me here? And it's like, you guys, it's so silly. You can do this, I promise you. And then we have like most of our consumers who get it who are like skin connoisseurs, and they have been meant for this, at home project. Like they've been looking forward for something like heavy duty like this. And so I've made the skin brew, right? Like the skin formula that goes into the little chamber when you pour it into the microneedling stamper, and you have that instantaneous, like dewiness and glow because you have with traditional microneedling with older derma rollers, you put hyaluronic acid on the skin and then you roll and you hope you're getting it in. And then before the swelling occurs at a certain amount to where you're getting that inflammation response and then you can't get anything into the skin as much, you're hoping that before that happens, you put more hyaluronic acid in the skin and then hoping that goes well, right? And we used to get these things off of like Amazon and all of that. So I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I love microneedling so much because before these heat-based therapies that were approved for, deeper skin types were around, I couldn't do anything else. So all of these treatments that I was offering to my patients, I can't do the laser resurfacing. I can't do the IPLs. I can't do, like all of that other stuff. I was like, I really can only microneedle safely for my skin type. And I love it so much. But the derma rolling was giving me and patients more hyperpigmentation than I'd like because the nature of the injury, the in and out at an angle, was working against us, and you end up just getting, no matter how much sunscreen, if you live in a sunny place like Southern California, you're going to get some degree of hyperpigmentation from that. So I loved the in and out stamp. It's like an in and out baby stamper. And then the skin brew that I wanted to make sure came with the entire kit, I wanted to make it very meaningful and not just something where, we put maybe like a kojic acid and we call it a brightening ampule. Like I wanted it to hydrate. I wanted it to brighten. I wanted it to work towards cell turnover. I wanted it to work towards, skin smoothing and also help prevent acne in its tracks. And what I knew worked really well for my patients and I, from working with medical grade skincare for so long, is glycolic acid. And what I loved from my culture was moringa leaf. So moringa in the Philippines, we call it malunggay. That's like our super antioxidant. I guess that's like the equivalent to like what kale is here in the US. Like we put it in all of our soups. We put it in we have herbolarios, which are like herbal docs. I guess like a more like everything that they have medicine wise is from nature and from our plants. And so herbolarios love the power of malunggay. It's a super antioxidant. It's just so healing for the skin. It brightens the skin. It helps fight off free radicals. It rejuvenates the skin. So those are the two main ingredients, is like glycolic acid from snail mucin, which I love so much. Hyaluronic acid is in the snail mucin as well. And then the moringa. And that just took off. When we launched that, I believe it was 2019, the response was insane. People love doing it at home, love that they could use it multiple times. We taught them how to cleanse it properly. We taught them how to use it properly and safely. And people weren't having the rebound hyperpigmentation like they were with rollers. That's our other tool, which I think has really helped democratize like what we do in clinic for patients. Like you're in Iowa somewhere and you'll never be able to make it to things we do location because that's just not something you want to do. Then like here you can have our microneedling stamp that we use for a lot of our microinfusions in office.
I love it. I used it for the first time actually this week. I had it and it was like sitting, I have a shelf of like things to do next, like products I want to try. And I was like, I have to try this. And it was really easy to use. And I loved it. I felt like I had like a little bit of a glow the next day. I'm excited to keep using it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so really glad
fun.
You liked it.
And it's like fun. It's like a nice self-care thing that you can do, like put the baby down, give myself a nice cleanse, and then it makes me feel like I'm doing something even more for my skin rather than just my regular skincare routine.
Yes, and it makes your skin more bioavailable for the rest of your skincare routine. And I think it's also great for people who are like, okay, I don't have 12 weeks to get used to this retinol, to get used to something. I have this event coming up. What can I do to look great in maybe like 1 week or 2 weeks? And you can do something like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
a little amp up, a little pep. Before we wrap up, I want to kind of some rapid fire questions for you, and I want your unfiltered opinion. So just whatever comes to mind. So the first one's going to be obvious. What are your thoughts on threads?
Oh, so love threads so much. They get a bad rep for sure. You know what I mean? Because there's so many people who don't do them well, I think, because so much training needs to happen with threads. There's a way bigger learning curve with doing threads than with doing Botox and filler. And the funny thing is, like with threads, there's so many less complications and adverse reactions actually with them, but you can do them very poorly. So I love threads so much, the skin thickening ones and the lifting ones, 10 out of 10. However, you need to go to a provider who learned from Eastern providers who have been doing this for a decade or longer. You can't just learn from like the guy down the street who picked it up a year ago. You know what I mean? So that's what set us apart, like our training. So threads, 10 out of 10. Yes. Love it.
Okay. Good to know. And what about oil pooling?
Want to be that girl. Tried it, gagged the whole time. There's something about like the oil being in that consistency for me just makes me want to puke, but I know that it works. So want to be that girl, but I can't. I gag.
I can't use it. The same thing. It makes me want to gag. It's like that, the consistency, and it gets like warm in your mouth. It's like disgusting to me. I can't do it. But you think it works?
So here's why I think it works, because my patients do it and I've seen the difference.
Maybe I'll do it anyways.
I don't know if there's like a study out there on it. I've never looked it up, but there has to be. I know that there's like this new toothpaste that's gone viral on TikTok where it's like violet and it cancels out the yellow in teeth. I can do that. That I've tried. It's worked. I wish I could be an oil pulling girl though.
Yeah, me too. I also have a purple toothpaste that I will use like before an event or something because it just like neutralizes, you know, it's like a Band-Aid, but it works quickly. And Skinvive. So we know that you like that one.
Skinvive. I've never been more excited for an injectable to come to the US. Loved Velour, loved Kiss when it came out, loved Volux, all of those things. Great. I'm so glad I have more tools to like blend different colors that I was hoping for when painting a face, you know, that kind of thing. But Skinvive has been a skin treatment that I've been waiting for to come from Europe and Canada, and Asia has had it. They've had it for years before we have had it. And I think it's because I'm so skin focused, you know, like I think skin integrity is the most important above all everything else that we can do for you, like in cosmetic derm. So 10 out of 10, highly recommend everyone do it. I did a little bit more yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. And I just did it a week and a half ago. And I was like, so I did this like little test on myself, right? And on one side, one of my injectors did my under eye. And on the other side, we didn't do anything. And that's how I knew also, because I'd been seeing it in my patients. And I was like, hold on. I've got to partake. And so we ended up doing one side, and in movement, that side was so much smoother, like not filled looking at all, so much smoother. And on the other side, I was like, you know what, we've got to do this. So yesterday I did the other under eye area, and I'm like, okay, this is like my new thing. PRFM with that, good to go.
Okay, good to know. And last rapid fire, what are your thoughts on baby Botox or, you know, kind of underdosing Botox?
Yeah, baby Botox is kind of shit. I don't like it. I mean, listen, I treat young girls, okay? And when I say young girls, I consider myself a young girl and I'm almost 40, so there's that for you. I treat women who are in their like mid to late 20s to, my demographic is like 25 to 42. Like we get a lot of those patients in. I think it's okay when someone comes in and they say like, I want some movement. That's totally fine. I want you to have movement too. However, for me to underdose you and then for you to come back every 2 months instead because I'm underdosing you, right? It's like giving you have a migraine and I give you a half of a Tylenol. You're not going to get the full strength with it and you're not going to get the full duration. And then what ends up happening is like you become more susceptible to becoming a secondary non-responder in the future. And that's not a theory. Like I've been in this industry for 14 years. The people who become secondary non-responders are providers. They're injectors because we have this stuff all the time at our disposal. And we're always, a little bit here, a little bit here. All I just need to do is just a little bit. And then your body has built up a resistance and it's not just to one of them, it's to all of them, right? So the other thing is like the forehead area is very, one of those things where some people say inject 20 units in the forehead, which is like considered standard dosing by some of these pharmaceutical companies. I don't think everyone needs 20 units in the forehead area. However, I do think that you need enough so that you get the result that you want and you still have some movement, but it lasts for you. So maybe not 4 units, but we'll get you to like 12 units and we'll do it the right way for you specifically, right? Because you can fuck someone up with 12 units. You can fuck someone up with 4 units when it's in the wrong placement. So you've got to be a little more artistic with your placement. As far as baby Botox, here's what I'll say. It's a branding thing. I tell patients when they come and they'll say, I only want baby Botox. And I'm doing like 85 units for them. And I'm like, it is baby Botox. Because when you do like migraine treatments and like, when you do treatments clinically for the rest of the body, like when neurologists are injecting Botox into different areas, they're using 250 units, 450 units. So if we're doing 40 units, babes, it's baby Botox as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I agree completely. And again, it comes back to that patient education, right? Like why are they coming in asking for that? Understanding what their desire is and then educating them on how we can achieve it in a different way. So for providers all over the country who maybe can't make it to Southern California but would like to train with you, do you have any online resources for them or what would you recommend?
I do. I really love Palette Resources still. It's not, you guys, if you look at the Palette Resources website, it's outdated, it's old. I don't know who their PR people are, but please call me. I'd love to help you and rebrand. But like, it's like, this like black and pink and it's like a little strange, but still, if you can get a class with Dr. Steve Yolen, if you can get a class with, you can check out Rana Canelli on Patreon also. Our classes will be available on a website soon. But Palette Resources on their website and also nationally, they train, right? Like they do these pop-ups. If you can go to those and they're affordable, a few $100 per class. It's a la carte. If you want, it's not like a $6,000 weekend. It's like if you just want to learn certain areas and like do it as you go, as your budget allows, as your time allows, then do those things. I've always been a big referral and proponent of those courses. I get nothing from them, but I do know they're solid. And a lot of their injectors are like some of the legacy injectors we have within Allergan. So they've been around since we were injecting like, weird stuff before fillers. Like they've been in the industry for like 20 to 25 years. They haven't lost their mojo. They still are at the top of their game. And when it comes to science, they've seen it evolve the entire time. So I always get a little weirded out when we have like injectors who are like 3 years in who are like, take my training class, because it's like, you've got to see a certain amount of thousands of patients before you get to the point where it's like, I've seen these complications. I know how to work through them. Let me teach you how to do these things. You give credit to who taught you those things, all of that kind of stuff. I'm not knocking them. I think that it's always good to innovate within the industry, but you also want to like take classes from people who have skin in the game and who have seen it. You know what I mean? Because learning artistry is one thing, but you have got to know what to do when things don't go perfectly and know how to manage complications. And usually that's from the more senior providers.
Yeah, very true. Because inevitably, the more patients you see, you will have complications. So, learning from those more senior injectors is really key. And you'll let us know when your courses are available online, because I'm sure after this, everybody's going to want to be able to take part in those. So
yeah, if they check out beautytheory.me, you'll be able to get the notifications if you sign up through our website for our email list, or also just like check in on our socials. We'll be announcing them for early next year.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Okay, so one last question before we wrap up. What is your most underrated skin tip?
My God. People might hate this. I had a patient who was 92 come in to see me and she looked fucking righteous, like fabulous. I'm talking, this woman looked like she was preserved back in her 50s. And I could not believe the date of birth that I saw on there. And I asked her, what is your secret, please? I'll do anything you do. Like if I have to sacrifice like a chicken, just kidding, I would never. But like, I'll do anything. And she was like, this is so funny. She was like, I take Vaseline. So it's Vaseline. I take Vaseline 2 to 3 times a week and I put it all over my hands, and I'll put socks all over my hands, and I'll wrap myself in like, whatever sweatsuit she doesn't care for. She puts it all over her body, puts it all over her feet, puts it all over. She preserved herself in Vaseline over the years. And so I always keep Vaseline with me. I have the mini ones, I have the big tubs, I have it everywhere. Before I go to sleep, I put it everywhere. And I use it to slug also. Like before we even knew what slugging was, we were doing that. And I knew that was really controversial. And I'm so happy. Who was it? Face by V, or What's on V's Face?
Yeah.
Was the first one that was like, you guys need to do this. And I was like, yes. My 92-year-old patient said that also. So it's Vaseline. Get your $7 tub.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh my gosh. Exactly. It's cheap. It's affordable. It comes in a huge tub. I have one all over my house. I have one on my bedside table. I have one in my bathroom. It's the best. And okay, one more question. I know I said that was the last one. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
It would be, okay, so I've always been told as a young girl, like, you're too much, especially for an Asian American first generation girl growing up, like, you're too loud, you have too many opinions, you're too strong, you're too bossy, all of that. And because I'm Delulu, like, I have major Delulu. I've always had too much confidence for no reason. No reason. I've always just kind of like pushed that aside. When I was a teen, like my junior, senior year of high school, I did like, am I too much? Am I too opinionated? Should I keep these things to myself? Should I be softer? And then you get to college and you realize, no, you're fucking okay, right? And so my advice to my younger self is, you're right in not listening to them, because that grit and gusto is going to get you somewhere big when you're older. And it'll help you fight for things and fight for people that you love. So don't mind the haters. Be loud and bossy. You're fine.
Yeah, and look where it's gotten you. I mean,
yeah,
it really.
Thank goodness.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I think this episode is going to be a favorite. I can't wait for potential patients or potential injectors to listen to this, because it's full of so many pearls. So thank you so much.
Thank you. These were such thoughtful questions. I really appreciate it. I can't wait.
Well, I was really excited to chat with you.
Me too.